Alexa, where you been?
Can you not? I'm ugly right now.
You're ugly always.
When you hear the word Nardwuar or the name Nardwuar, you instantly think of an interview. You instantly think of a moment. There's plenty of different bands, different artists, different genres, a bunch of different people that Nardwuar interviews, and you know what? A lot of people appreciate him for that, and I am one of those people. Now, if you watch my videos and my interviews with bands, I do kind of not copy Nardwuar, but at the end I always try to give the interviewee a gift just in case that interview is trash. I must admit I am a beginner whenever it comes to interviews, but I'm trying to get better, and I am influenced by Nardwuar, most definitely. So today, I'm just going to talk about some of my favorite Nardwuar interviews, and hopefully you guys can let me know some of your favorites as well. But before I get into the whole entire video, please like and subscribe. That would help me out a bunch. Click the notification bell, and that will let you know whenever I post a new video. It's only right I start with an interview that was my first recollection of Nardwuar, and the first interview I've ever seen by Nardwuar was when he interviewed A$AP Rocky. This interview was posted in 2012, and I probably seen it a couple years after that. I wasn't a day one interview watcher like that back in the day. And throughout this whole interview, you know, there's just a bunch of knowledge that Nardwuar has that baffles the person he's interviewing, and that's just the staple whenever you think of Nardwuar. He just has some knowledge that you wouldn't think would be in his brain, but it is for some reason. He just pulls out all this government information. It's kind of crazy. Nardwuar's legacy really is just having superpower knowledge, and looking back at it, when I watched this interview, I did feel like Nardwuar was just this weird dude, man. He just seemed like this very strange person to my very young mind, and I was like, why is this dude so creepy with it? But nah, man. Nardwuar always comes to his interviews with a bunch of knowledge, and that is very much appreciated whenever, you know, all these bands and rappers are being interviewed. They want to feel like they are being appreciated and not wasting their time. A bunch of research is needed whenever you do have an interview, and research, Nardwuar, it never fails, man, never fails. You see Nardwuar interview a bunch of rappers and a bunch of, you know, just alternative artists and stuff like that, so it never really crossed your mind that this dude has interviewed Nirvana and Kurt Cobain and everybody in the band. So many years ago when I found this, I was just like, no way. There's no way this dude has been through so many different eras and just has amazing interviews left and right from the beginning to now. The interview was split up in different parts and there was a lot of different videos, but once you finished watching that, it was like, damn, bro, I didn't want this to end at all. There was a bunch of pizza eating. Chris Novoselic was just kind of being weird sometimes. I don't want to say weird, but he was kind of aggressive and silly with it. And it was just like, this isn't the Chris that we usually see in interviews, but hey, what do I know? Courtney Love was there too. So it was just like a bunch of stuff happening, and, you know, Kurt Cobain, Nirvana, legends in the game, legends forever. A bunch of people know that. And yeah, it's just a classic interview. Next up, Henry Rollins, 1998. And I find this interview very hilarious, and a lot of people don't really find it that way. Some people think that Henry Rollins was very aggressive and very mean to Nardwuar, like on some Sonic Youth type of vibe. But as Nardwuar just kept picking at him and just kept using all this knowledge, it seemed like Henry Rollins did lighten up a bit towards the end. So to me, it kind of came across like he was kind of mad that he really enjoyed talking to Nardwuar, and it was just hilarious watching it. Nardwuar usually does have like this nervous tone whenever he's speaking and asking questions, but it just seemed a little bit elevated when he was talking to Black Flag legend Henry Rollins. And it makes sense, man. Whenever you look at that humanoid, it's like just this very intimidating looking person, and it showed throughout the whole interview, and you know, it makes sense. I would have been nervous AF as well, Nardwuar. But you know how I said that Rollins was being a little bit aggressive, kind of like Sonic Youth? I don't think it was to that extent, and I still kind of enjoyed that Sonic Youth interview, I'm not gonna lie to you, but I feel like I don't need to talk about that because a lot of people already know what happened throughout that interview and interviews because I have more than one. And Nardwuar is an influence of mine. I mentioned that earlier in the video, and it kind of just shows how he just wanted to talk about music and interview these people that are in humongous bands and icons to the game, and the energy from every person and every band slash artist is always going to be different, and that's something I look at. I take notes, and I'm like, okay, not everybody's going to like you. You can't be perfect, and you got to accept that whenever you interview or talk to anybody in general. Let's move on to the Lil Pump interview. This interview had me dying from start to finish. There wasn't really any crazy detail about, you know, really anything, but it was just a fun, energized time, and that's all I really took from it. And when you look at these interviews, comparing them from bands to rappers, it does seem like rappers do appreciate Nardwuar a lot more than, you know, bands for some reason. I don't know why that is. Lil Pump, obviously not the brightest person ever in the world, but Nardwuar doesn't look at him like less of a person because of that. He looks at him like he's an artist. Let's talk about the music. Let's talk about the vibes. Let's go. I really hope that nobody that I interview in the future treats me very poorly, but you know, it probably might happen. You can't really please everybody, but I'm not going to fold. I'm going to, you know, stand right there and take whatever they throw at me and see what happens. I will fight every one of you one by one. Alexa farted and she said it stinks a little bit. It was kind of silent though, so it might be deadly. A lot of high school song moments that I could remember and recall and thought this was the greatest music I've ever heard in my life. So shout out to Lil Pump for that. Very little brain cells needed for this interview, but you know what? Let's move on. The final interview I'm going to be talking about is the Steve Albini interview. And for those of you who don't know, which I feel like a bunch of you will know, but if you don't, Steve Albini, legendary producer, engineer, Nirvana, The Breeders, Pixies, the list goes on. Legend in the game. I loved hearing this interview and all the knowledge bro had to spit out. He worked on Nirvana's In Utero album, so it was cool to just hear these stories from the recording sessions. As a big Nirvana fan, it's just like, all these Easter eggs and stuff I've never heard before. I was dying laughing when he mentioned how there's a Dave Grohl Polaroid out there with his ass on fire. The stories were really endless, and I'm very grateful for just listening and having Nardwuar post that on YouTube for my eyes and ears. That finalizes my favorite Nardwuar interviews list, and I'm probably going to make a part 2 in the future. This was a very short video, but you know what? It was a very fun video, and I hope you guys enjoyed. One of these days, I will have all the knowledge like Nardwuar, and I will have just crazy interviews pumping out left, right for you guys to listen and enjoy. I definitely am a student of the game, student in the game, and he is the legend, sensei, whatever. That's all for me though. Like and subscribe, keep the music alive. Nardwuar will never die. Nardwuar.